My name's Kirk Cerny, and it's a pleasure to be with you. Secure Passage loves school safety. We've been in the school safety business for well over a decade. And this topic in particular is one that is not only necessary, not only intriguing, but is a topic that is becoming far more accepted in the space of education than was previously thought in years gone by. Why do I say that? Because behavioral threat typically means that you're working with individuals through their potential counselors or school nurses, et cetera, for behavioral issues, and that relating obviously meant to mental health and other sorts of topics that have been throughout the years a little bit challenging in school settings. When do we potentially intervene in the path of a student going potentially the wrong way? And we'll get into that subject in just a little bit more as we move along. But as a practitioner of behavioral risk and just behavioral threat for many years, I'm pleased to see that education is, through K through 12, also in colleges and universities, taking behavioral threat seriously, because it's not about turning people in. The whole topic is about turning people around and guiding them in a correct and hopefully positive and beneficial direction for the student. In fact, the National Association of School Psychologists have put framework around behavioral threat and behavioral threat assessment for many years. It is a topic that was originated in the state of Virginia really as a practice. Dr. Gene Dysinger wrote the Virginia model, if you will, that got started with the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, was then taken into the University of Virginia to become the CSTAG model, CSTAG. Additionally, after the Sandy Hook shooting and all the way back to Columbine, the United States Secret Service has taken a great interest through their National Threat Assessment Center to provide information on behavioral threat and how it impacts all kinds of different audiences, whether it be in schools, in workplaces, et cetera. So it's a topic whose time has come. It's a topic that is very relevant in education. And as a person who spent 25 years in education, I can tell you that it is impactful. Just a couple of years ago, I was interviewing a school resource officer out of Tennessee. She was at the National Association of School Resource Officers meeting, and I had just asked the question casually because we do school safety as foundational safety as a company. But I had asked her, what is the tenor or the temper even for behavioral threat in schools today? And she looks at me sort of puzzled and says, "Kirk, I've been doing that for 10 years." So there are districts that have been very impactful as it relates to measuring student wellness through behavioral threat. And then above and beyond that, she said, operationalizing it has been the toughest part because you bring together student behavioral teams, for example, multidisciplinary teams from throughout the school who all need to be on the same page about the students that they're keeping an eye on, that they're trying to, as I say, turn around and help to identify problems that students may be having, not only in the classroom or on the school grounds, but also at home. So it's an important topic for us. It's certainly one that's well accepted. And now we're seeing across landscapes of states, legislatures saying, hey, behavioral threat assessment is a necessary component of the educational landscape. In addition, you have districts that have very actively picked it up. And then some, of course, I do want to say as the caveat, that have been doing this for years. So we're going to dive into streamlining behavioral threat assessment with our Secure Passage offering. We will be joined later in the call by Sergeant Kim Krishenko. She is the Danville Community School Corporation Police out of Indiana in the schools as a lead SRO, school resource officer. I'll always try to get those acronyms spelled out for everyone so we all track together. But it's great to have you with us. And also with us today is our in-house pro on school behavioral threat assessment. His name is Lucas Perfetti. Lucas is a solutions architect with us, but moreover, I would say he's a consultant to our folks who pick up behavioral threat assessment from Secure Passage because he is your guide. He walks you through the setup. He walks you through the way that the platform should be used, case management, et cetera. At Secure Passage, we are very much about our customers and the relationship that we build with our customers rather than a transaction. And that's been our pedigree. We are a Gary Fish company, 30 years in cybersecurity, 25 years in physical security, and this behavioral threat piece as well, we've been doing for a very long time. In fact, we started our physical security company with a Department of Defense contract around behaviors that individuals may display when they're attacking or plan to attack critical infrastructure of the Department of the Army, for example. So that was back in 1999. So yeah, we've been behavioralists for a very long time. And with that, I'm going to bring it over to Lucas so we can look into the platform. As we go along, we invite you to put questions in chat as well as follow along and hopefully have a great experience here with our insights on behavioral threat assessment. To that, Lucas, it is your show, and I appreciate everyone's attendance today. Lucas, go.
Thank you very much, Kirk. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Welcome. My name is Lucas Perfetti. I'm a solutions architect here with Secure Passage. I appreciate the introduction, Kirk. And what we're going to do here is walk you through our student behavioral threat assessment platform. There's a few key areas that I'm going to highlight extensively, like our student portal, our cases, case management portal, the incident portal, as well as the assessments that are being ran through it. And at the top, I would just like to let everyone know that every single behavioral threat assessment team is in a different place. Some teams have their process completely worked out. And for those teams, we would like to aid you in your process, right? And the system is meant to be customizable to fit your needs. For those behavioral threat assessment teams that are maybe still trying to put together a team or put together their process, we have some experts here that can help put that process together with you and make you feel comfortable going into any new venture or to meet any standards set by your state through through legislation or whatever may be happening. So we want to say thank you for joining, and we're going to get started with a demonstration here. Right now, we're looking at the home page, and every home page is going to be customizable. All of these templates are movable. You can decide and pick how you want this view to be, but you can have what's going to be shown is any asset details or activities, any recently added items to the system. You're going to have a map that's included in this homepage, as well as a timeline of any events or incidents that are coming into the system. You're going to have start items. Those start items are going to be viewable for everyone that has access to the platform and access to those assets. And I'll tell you what that means shortly when we get into the student section. We're also going to, you're also going to have all of your assigned tasks are going to show up on your homepage as well. So anything that gets assigned to you directly as a team member is going to show up as well as any recent incidents. So the first main portion of our platform is the student portion, right? You're going to be bringing in your student data. This data can be brought in manually, or what we're seeing typically is that we are going to be connecting with your student information system. Once we make that connection with your student information system, you will choose which items you would like to be mapped over, and that will come in and show up in the overview section, right? So details like name, address, birthday, email address, phone numbers, 504 plans, IEP plans can all be brought into the system. And what you're going to see down here is this permissions section as well as tags. Tags are important because you are able to organize, whether it's students, incidents, photos, whatever may be brought into the system. You're going to be able to organize and filter those results very quickly in terms of reporting. We can also build custom reports for you for really any field that you see throughout the system. But tagging, is something that we definitely encourage because you're going to be able to filter information much quicker. Now for the permissions section, we have role-based access control. So what that means is, typically during onboarding, we're going to put together data groups for you, right? Whether that's by school, by behavioral threat assessment team, or we can make it very granular, right? We can go ahead and limit the access of one single picture to one single administrator or one single police officer. We do this to help protect you as a school and help you guys follow the guidelines of HIPAA and FERPA. So we really want to make sure that you are only seeing the dashboard that you should be seeing, right? If you have a district with 3 different schools, principal A does not need to see what's going on with school C, right? So we want to make sure that we get you all in the proper data groups, and we work with you during onboarding to do so. Every single student profile is going to have an overview of that specific student, details, any location data, a main contact, any photos or documents if you would like to add those, points of contact, as well as linked data. So that linked data is very important because as we start to bring this data in, and might I add a side note that we're a SOC 2 compliant platform, so we are very secure. If I won't go into the technicals about it, but we're a secure platform. We're meant to house all of your data that's crucial, again, to abide by HIPAA and FERPA laws with those access managements. So all of this linked data is going to become very important and crucial when you're building a profile. The data that goes into it, the system is only as good as the data that goes into it. So as you're starting to look and notice, hey, we have this student that is involved in 4 different cases, you're able to get that perspective, take a bird's eye view, and actually look and see what kind of cases are they involved in. Are these, transient or substantive threats? Do we need to intervene, right? The whole idea behind this is getting all of the data in the system, understanding that data, and making informed decisions about that data, right? How do we take preventative measures to put this student back in the right track? And Bryce or Tyler, if there's any questions that come in, please give them to me as they come in. And I encourage everyone to ask as many questions as they would like. We'll answer them for you here live. But that is essentially what we're doing here with the student section is we're hooking up with your student information system. We're bringing in the critical data needed, and then we are adding data to these profiles, right, through linked data and other means. As this student travels through cases or incidents, things like that, it's all going to start building that profile for this student so you can start to really get the information needed to start making informed decisions. Moving into the staff section, just to, for staff, parents, it's going to all be a very similar look and feel, right? I don't want to kind of take you through and do the same thing over and over again because it's going to have that same type of overview, but we are also able to add staff members. We can add police officers. We can add anyone that's involved in the process as assets, right? So we can start tying those assets or those identities to 2 different cases, 2 different incidents, and again, start building that repertoire of data if needed. We're also doing that on the school sense as well, right? So we're gonna have these different schools, and as we get these schools, we'll see in the permission section, hey, we'll build out your permissions for you. So don't want to go overboard with that, but we will go ahead and get into an incident now. So now after you have had a student that has had an incident happen, whatever that incident may be, you can go ahead and create an incident report. We are also able to build out an integration for any type of online tips or any incident reporting system that you currently have in your system. We don't want to make you duplicate work. We just want to make sure that the information gets into the system. So when at our core with our Haystacks platform, this is our student behavioral threat assessment platform, but we've been utilizing Haystacks as well for protecting critical infrastructure and physical assets. We are an integrator, right? So we can bring in all different types of technology, whether again, that's call centers, tip lines, things like that. We don't want to make you duplicate your processes and force adaptation if that's not necessary. So we want to just come in and aid your process. Now, when it comes to the incident itself, it's going to have a very similar layout, and that's by design, right? We don't want to make you have to learn 8 different widgets and all those 8 different widgets have different layouts, right? It's going to look very similar and you're going to feel comfortable within the system after you start to get used to it. I always say if you're able to post a picture to social media, you're going to be able to populate information into this system. All of these pages are printable or reportable, and we can go ahead and format those reports any way you would like, and ensure that we get that data to for workflows and things like that. We can get that to your superiors, or if you're a superior, we can make sure that your employees are reporting things properly, and we can get that for you in a really nice, organized, neat report. Now, when you come into the incident itself, you're going to see again that there's an overview, any details about the incident, location data, link data, as well as photos and documents. So you're starting to kind of see that that flow of how things look, what kind of information is going into the system, and why it's important, right? And the importance is collecting that data so you can start to make informed decisions. Typically, if you have something like a student screaming out something in the hallway, that's not necessarily something that's going to lead to a full investigation. Or maybe a fight at a rival high school. Little Johnny got into a fight. Typically not something that's going to be an indicator of future targeted violence. But maybe now when we come into the system and we see little Johnny's been in 4 fights over the last 3 months, well, now there's a trend here, right? Let's look into this. Do we have to, whatever processes you have in place, but do we have to go home and do a check on, make sure everything's okay at home? Is there bullying happening within the school? Let's go ahead and actually open up a case for this, right? So you are going to decide incidents can stand alone, or if you believe they need to be raised to a full case, then we can go ahead and open a case for you. But before we do that, I also want to just show you that we are able to pull up roll-up reports on any incidents as well. So if I wanted to go ahead and I was tasked with how many incidents have we had over the last X amount of time, we can go ahead and generate that roll-up report very quickly for you. And it's going to bring up all the incidents and everything that is important, within that time frame. So if we decide, well, as well, I just want to show you as well, very easy to populate this information, right? All of these different incident tabs, assessments, cases, right? Very easy to create. You just click the plus button, you put your title in, your subject, target name, witness name, what type of incident is it? And any of these drop downs that I'm showing you as we're going through the process, these are all customizable. So if you have incidents specific to your district or your school building, we can go ahead and customize that for you and make sure that we're getting you the proper types of incidents, things along that nature, right? So you're going to come in, fill out this information, and then it's going to open up that page that I showed you before, and you can start to populate all the information needed. Now, when we come into the case here, and so far I've showed you our student section and our incident section, and by determination as a team, you're going to decide whether or not this needs to move into a full case, and if you have a full caseload for it. Once you've made that decision, we will open up that case. Okay. So the incident, the incident description is going to populate in from the incident portion that we were just showed. As well as the subject information is going to come in from that student information system. So as you create your incident, these two are already filled out for you. The main portion that you are going to have to fill out as an administrator when you open up the case is, hey, we're going to set the threat level on this. We're going to determine what the case status is. And most importantly, you're going to decide who your case lead is and who your reviewer is. And this is going to set up the steps in the workflow for when Lucas does an interview, David will be the one reviewing this interview. David will be the one reviewing this case and making the ultimate decision, right? We are here to assist you in your process. We're not here to make decisions for the school district, right? We want to make sure that we get you the information package it well, and all of the background information pertaining to this case, so you guys can make an informed decision on what this case is. So after setting up that case overview portion, you're going to see here that we have case tasks. These tasks are auto-populated in after you are completing a task, or as you're working on a task, you can come in and go ahead and say, I have completed this task, and now it is going to change it, right? So we can set up these task bars for you, and ensure that you guys have all the proper tasks in, as well as the threat report will be attached to it, right? So this is really the lifeblood of the entire system, is working through these cases, and getting all the information in the proper spots. So when we come here, you'll see that we have a spot where you can add your assessment findings, right? As well as interviews. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I don't want to be distracting, but this is where we assign our actual assessments, right? And you'll see that these live in the assessments portion, or the assessments tab, but they are attached to these cases, right? So when I come into this assessment, now you're going to see, okay, assessment was assigned. All the information populates in from the assessment itself, from the asset itself. You can add any photos or documents. As you can see, it's looking familiar to some of these other pages, any linked data, right? You can add any annotations if you'd like. They're going to have that. You're going to have that same thing mimicked about the asset itself. So you're getting an overview of the entire assessment, and then you're getting an overview of the asset. And we're also having an information page here, right? We can populate in anything here, whether it's an acknowledgement button, a pre-question screener, right? Hey, we want to make sure that we're doing this properly, or maybe there are some new people on your behavioral threat assessment team. So we want to go ahead and just make sure that this is acknowledged in order to complete this. After I acknowledge it, now I'm able to move to that next step in the assessment. So all the questions are going to be here. As Kirk told you, we follow a specific model, with the Virginia model, but we can customize this assessment in any way that you would like, right? And really, again, it depends on where you're at in the process. If you have everything ironed out, you have all your assessment questions, we can go ahead and just upload your assessments into the system and populate those. Now, if you're, again, maybe in the middle of deciding what you're doing with behavioral threat assessment teams and where you're at in the process, we can come in and guide you, right? You can utilize all of our questions or assessments here. We have assessments for witnesses, subjects, suicidal ideation. There's quite a few assessments in here pre-baked. But if you would like, or if you just want to pick a few of our questions and add some more that you need that are district specific or state specific, that's also okay too, right? We're pretty flexible in what we're able to do with the system and populating information in. So you will come through then and do this subject interview or this witness interview, whatever the case may be, answer these questions, and then submit those questions, right? So you'll also notice here that you can add required questions. You can highlight questions as well, right? So maybe, maybe you're willing to let them get by with only answering the required questions and adding any extra context, or we can add highlighted questions as well. So when you look at the assessment, at first glance, it's going to give you all the highlighted answers. At the end of, at the end of the day, really though, what we're able to do is customize this for you. However you would like this assessment, whatever questions you would like populated in can be populated in. So after that is all finished, you're going to go ahead and submit, and it will take you back into that case that we were currently in, right? So now we know that through the interviews portion, this is in progress or it is complete, and as we've seen, it is attached to the reviewer. So that will go to the reviewer at that point. So just want to pause for a second here and kind of go over what we've talked about so far, because I've thrown quite a bit at you, and I just want to make sure I'm not talking too fast. We showed you how we're able to bring in student information with student information systems, right? Then we showed you that you can bring in incidents, whether those incidents are standalone or those incidents are attached to a case, run roll-up reports on those incidents themselves so you can report to administration, and then how to run an assessment, whether that's customized templates or utilizing our templates, right? So that gets us through a good portion of what we're able to do here with this system and where we're at in the case management section as well. Tyler, Bryce, have we gotten any questions coming in yet?
Don't believe we have any questions quite yet.
Question? Okay, perfect. So then when we move on from the interviews and all of our interviews in the system, we're able to make any specific observations. Again, with these drop downs, we're able to customize these, right? So we can help fit the needs of your district and make it relatively easy as well. So within the observations tab, you're going to see here some questions about accountability, questions about key dates, overview of the subject's behavioral history, right? So we're going to be able to populate in a ton of different information. We also had our consultant, Lou Robinson, help us build this out, right? And he was a certified behavioralist, or he worked in the Secret Service for George W. Bush, right? So he's been doing this for a very long time. He's still on our staff. We can get consulting hours with Lou Robinson as well. If you guys, again, are a little bit more, beginners in the process and you're trying to find your way in terms of how you want to put together your behavioral threat assessment teams, things along those lines, we can bring in some of our experts to really help consult you throughout the process. So over here, you're going to see some things like key observations. Did they identify any grievances, any loss impacting the subject, right? What's their psychological state? And you're able to bring in all this information and report on this information. So again, you can make the right informed decision about how you want to respond to the threat, right? For this demo, probably should have mentioned at the top that all of this is test demo. It's dummy or test data. It's dummy data. We don't have any student information in here. This is all stuff that we made up for the purposes of a demonstration. But for this specific student in this case, we decided that the response should be counseling and mental health services through peer support groups, right? And we can have 8 sessions of these. It's in progress right now, right? So we're getting that status. Now, if there are specific types of cases that you guys deem as very high threat, after this process is finished, we can go ahead and automatically reopen cases 2 months from now, right? If you want to go and double back and make sure, or automatically create tasks for you guys to look back into this in 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever your process is, we can go ahead and match that. But we can make sure that the system pushes notifications to remind you and say, hey, you had this type of case closed. We're going to go ahead and reopen a new case just so you guys can double check. From that portion, we also have an attachment section. And when I, say that we can get really granular with specific information, right? I can change the permissions for law enforcement. Sometimes there are photos that would be from a criminal investigation, something revealing, right, for a student, and it is for police eyes only. We can go ahead and ensure that the SRO or school resource officer is the only one that has access to view this, right? So we can house this information safely, but also keep in those safeguards to ensure that we're only seeing what we're supposed to be seeing. In terms of how it looks, if I don't have access to something, it just doesn't exist in the system for me. There's no way for me to even back end get to it because it does not exist for me. That's just the way it's set up with our role-based access, right? And also, there's an audit trail for every single move that's made in this system. If someone deletes a case, if someone moves something, whatever it may be, there is going to be a trail letting you know this user deleted this case, right? So we're able to keep tabs on that. But within the attachments, you can bring in different folders. Again, you can add photos, documents, any relevant information, create folders, things like that, just to ensure that, again, the right people are seeing the right information. From there, you're also able to add any notes, general notes to the case, anything that you may want to include information-wise that's going to help you guys, just keep tabs on everything, as well as any related cases. So, when we were in the student information portion of the platform, you were able to see, hey, what related cases was this student linked to? Well, you're going to get that also for the cases themselves, right? What other cases is this related to? And how did this affect? How did this have a rippling effect through? So, really, that is the bulk of what this system does. And just wanted to, really run you through and drill into that case portion, because this is the lifeblood of the system. Really, everything attaches to this. This is where all the information is housed. This is where the reports really come from, right? So, utilizing this case structure, and like I said before, the structure of the case is going to stay similar, but we can change the insides of things in order to fit your school's needs. The last thing we want to do is force more, adaptation or adaptation from your staff if it's not necessary, right? If you're moving from pen and paper to a platform like this, then there's going to be some, adaptation. But when it comes to your current process, if you're doing something on SharePoint or Microsoft Teams, we're seeing a lot of that. We're gonna do our best to make the transition as seamless as possible.
Yeah, Lucas, I'd like to add, on that particular point, the behavioral threat management is all about, privacy, confidentiality, not only at the school, but then, as Lucas mentioned earlier in the presentation, just the trust that one can have in a platform or using a platform of this type. And number one, from a security perspective, at the heart of Secure Passage, we are a security engineering firm. And we are always looking at our platforms from the perspective of who could potentially hack, who could potentially get in. The upside for all practitioners using this platform is there are no open ports on the back end. There's no way to get into this system in order to divulge information from the system. It would have to be a user, somebody on a behavioral threat management team, and those are trusted individuals. So the outside hack, or even students, who are interested in maybe getting in to sensitive information, they're simply not going to be able to do it, not with this platform. It is a cloud-based solution as well, so you're not running your IT department crazy with on-prem servers or other kinds of software that needs to be kept up to date, et cetera. Additionally, the platform, just beyond the security of the platform itself, it is indeed built to have multiple people, multiple voices, as Lucas said, on that behavioral threat assessment management team, to be able to get into one place that is the source of truth for your student information, right? That behavioral threat assessment team can use this as their landing page to not only see what is happening, with those recent incidents, for example, that are popping up, keeping everybody on the same page, but then also, as a team, work through cases, see what's assigned, how things are moving, and genuinely move a student to a better mental health position or a better behavioral position for proactive and positive outcomes. That's absolutely essential. And the platform actually allows you to do that, right? To over communicate, or at least to information share, even across a small team of maybe 6 or 8 members within a school or a school district. That still, again, with all of the day-to-day responsibilities of an educator or a staff member or a faculty member, having something that allows them to switch context from the education part to their role or responsibility for the behavioral threat assessment management team. This is the way to keep people on the same page and to get students into a better, as I said, more positive posture going forward. When we talk about the steps, right, that an organization should take, if you are new to behavioral threat management, as Lucas said, we can help you with that. Literally, if you're square one, we can help you with that. If you've had an established program for a long time, but you're concerned about the way that the information is being stored, Lucas did mention Google Docs or Excel spreadsheets, et cetera. Those are Google Docs may be HIPAA compliant, but they are easily shareable. They don't have the controls that are necessary for true privacy as it relates to the data that might be related, obviously, to a student's mental health. As you go through the process, then that multidisciplinary threat assessment team, they can feel confident about where they're storing notes about the information that they're putting in, and then from there, they're able to as Lucas was saying, add those documents, add those photographs, so forth and so on, with the knowledge that those are going to be safe in the environment of this platform and at your school. Tyler, I believe we did have a question that came in, sir.
Yeah, Kirk, I think you're heading in this direction, but a question that came in through the chat. Do records transfer with the student as he or she moves within the district?
Well, that's always a district level decision. If there are, within a district, if you're using, and this would be a best practice, you would be using the behavioral threat management platform by Secure Passage for all of your schools, for example. So it doesn't matter if a kid's in elementary or if they're a graduating senior, this would be the platform that would be useful across the district. So the answer to the question would be yes, we could share information, or the district could share information as it relates to transferring students. The way that one might set that up within the district is to have a policy that when there is a transfer, whether it's at the beginning of a semester or whether it's during a semester, which, by the way, that's the most challenging time, right? A student coming in to a district mid-semester, reasons generally unknown to the faculty, but it may be a behavioral situation where a student's being moved from one school to the other. It's very important for that record to transfer, but it would be the decision at the local level of the district to track that information. There are currently some states looking at legislation and or passing laws related to the transfer of records when a student does transfer. The tragedy most recently in Georgia, for example, was a student transferring from one county, one district, over to another county. That student already had a history of bringing guns to school, for example, or other malicious potentially behavior. And that student transferred to another district. And, I hate to say it, it sounds like one district just kind of cleaned their hands of it and passed him along. The threat was not known at the other school, the new school in Georgia, even though the student had a significant record regarding behavior previously. So that question is so germane to this conversation. Do we transfer records? It would be the responsibility of the school district to make sure that those records are transferred, but it is indeed possible within the platform. Lucas, do you have any color or commentary around that one as well? I know you have these conversations every day.
Yeah, no, you covered most of it, right? But two things I wanted to add to that is, with your student information system, now if it's within district, right? Like a student moving from primary to middle school and middle school to high school, that is hooked up with your student information system. So as those students move along in the process, you'll see the grade portion here. That's going to trigger them to be moved into that next school, right? As soon as they enter grade 9, they are now a high school students, so those records are essentially transferred or they just become visible within the platform. Now we're starting to see with Danville and other school districts in general, a lot of times we're seeing transfers coming back and forth right across the border, right? So if there's any type of regional deployment or you and a couple neighbors have this platform, we're able to help with a very easy transfer of that information of the student over to your neighboring schools, right? Which is something we're typically seeing a need for.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. There is another question, I believe, Tyler, that just popped up. Can you get that one for us? I'm going to go ahead and check this out real quick. It says, what are the main benefits of moving the process onto a platform? I'm going to take that one to begin with here. First of all, we mentioned this whole topic of having a behavioral threat assessment management team. If you've got one, fantastic. Check that box. Always make sure that the team members too are not, I don't want to use the word enthusiastic, but truly interested in the positive outcomes of students. Once you have that multidisciplinary team established, and why do I say multidisciplinary? Because you may have your school counselor or someone responsible for mental wellness. And in some districts, you have a school psychologist. There are some haves and have-nots in that respect. In a lot of districts, the counselor is acting as that school psychologist or is one. In addition, you may have administration that's involved from a disciplinary perspective, but more these days that's a turnaround type person. In addition, you may have other volunteers. They may be faculty, they may be staff. We've got one school that has a gym teacher that is very much involved in behavioral threat management, but also is that person that hears a lot in class and out on the playground, for example. Those are key individuals to understand what's happening in the threat landscape, not to mention the school resource officers, if those are present in the district. Those folks become the friends of students, but also the confidence and the confidants in some cases that will be hearing from students if they're suffering at school, bullying incidents, things of this nature, or if they're suffering potentially at home. Are they not getting enough to eat? Are they otherwise distracted by matters in the home? Just understanding that is the strength of a multidisciplinary team. Beyond that, then, it's important for a team to establish what are those concerning behaviors, right, that we want to track. Not only the prohibited behaviors, like don't bring a gun or a knife to school, but then the other behaviors of potentially active bullying, et cetera. Beyond that, having a central reporting mechanism, not only for the behavioral threat management team, which would be the secure passage behavioral threat management platform, but then also what are your tip lines or applications or other ways, mechanisms that students are telling officials of concerning behavior, et cetera, or faculty or staff. One thing that I want to point out about that as well, you have all kinds of different laws and all kinds of jurisdictions, but sharing information, like if a faculty member observes a student in class with a concerning behavior, sharing that information to a behavioral threat assessment team member is not a breach of privacy for the student. The student can't, and the parents as well, can't expect a level of privacy if the student is in the school place, with concerning behavior being demonstrated. Beyond that central reporting mechanism, you will define the relationship with law enforcement as well. The reason why capturing all of this information, whether it be documents, photos, videos, et cetera, and placing it here in the platform, is when you do have that threshold when law enforcement should be part of the behavioral threat management team. By the way, your threat management team can have third parties. It can be your local police department, your sheriff's department. It could be a community mental health professional, et cetera. There's no reason that individuals like that cannot be on your team. They don't necessarily need to participate in every behavioral threat management case. However, if the threat is legitimate and mitigation actions need to be taken, a school resource officer or a law enforcement officer maybe be engaged in a consultative role or maybe even a direct role. If the law enforcement officer isn't a district staff member, you may need to have a memorandum of understanding with your local police department to define the relationship between school staff and law enforcement, et cetera, and the outlines that law enforcement responsibilities will have in the process. Finally, then, I want to talk a little bit about establishing that assessment procedures. I've seen hit and miss with behavioral threat management teams that don't use a platform to keep everyone on the same page. An effective behavioral threat management team is going to identify, inquire, assess, and manage. And that work is a tall order if you don't have a source of truth like this. This is a clear and confidential reporting mechanism that helps you identify not only the subject, but the situations whose behavior or impact has raised concern. So when you're conducting an inquiry, you can gather this data in a lawful and ethical manner and assess the information regarding the situation and the context that is really applicable there, and determine if there are factors that may lead to the threat to others, for example. As it relates to just monitoring the progress, staying engaged, Lucas, again, if you would go back to the home screen, I do want to just point out, because we saw this just a little bit earlier, if I am an analyst, or that's more of a law enforcement term, if I am a participant in the behavioral threat management team and I come to this dashboard at the beginning of my day or when I'm going to dedicate time to behavioral threat management, I can see the start items right there in the middle, front and center. These are the things that are important to me, right? These are going to be germane to you as a practitioner. Obviously, right below that, what is assigned to you is going to be the stuff that keeps you on track. It has, the time that it's due. And by the way, if it shows up red, it means that it's already been due. If it shows up yellow just a few days before it's due, that's prompting your behavioral threat team member to accomplish their work. So as the administrator of the team, you will have a much better time making sure that, the threat team members are getting through their work or their assignments in a timely manner. For situations determined to be of low risk, informational monitoring, things like that, that might be a starred item where you just want to keep an eye on what's going on. For those subjects determined to be of moderate, high, or imminent risk, right away, this is a critical or a very substantive threat. You may have a more formalized progress monitoring that'll be implemented. That would be more of the assigned to me and the understanding of the recent incidents and how those are impacting the student and the school and the team. Therefore, you can track follow-up meetings. You can schedule to review progress and responsiveness to interventions and various supports that you come up with. And it's important, also to, from time to time, reevaluate what you're doing, reevaluate your plan, and make adjustments as necessary. The platform really allows you to do that in a great way. A training section of the platform can be updated with the latest information on how you're guiding your team, for example. And, everything from creating and promoting a safe school climate, through this type of platform, making sure that your prevention and mitigation rely on relationships, so you know who's best to potentially be working with a student, et cetera, as well as then, making sure that all stakeholders are up to speed as to how they should be trained, what they should be looking for. This kind of platform really helps you with that K through 12, even college and university process with great fidelity and great understanding among the team. With that, I've spoken maybe just a little bit further than my turn, Lucas, but just wanted to add those thoughts for the participants as we get here toward the end of our demonstration today. Lucas, what other parting shots do you have?
Well, I think you covered it pretty well. The main thing, and I heard something that stuck with me at the Georgia Emergency Management Conference, and that is, it's hard to collect the dots, or it's hard to connect the dots if you do not collect the dots, right? So to me, that is the biggest advantage of having everything on a platform. We put in those safeguards for you. There's many things that we do throughout the platform itself, but just being that source of truth, you know, as we would like to say, being that singular source of truth for your behavioral threat assessment needs.
Much appreciated. And to the attendees today, we're grateful for you being with us, learning a little bit more about this important topic. Behavioral threat management, you know, it's meant to be fact-based and very systematic. Our platform allows you to do that and do that accurately. And by the way, at a pretty good price point, you're not going to break the bank by putting in a platform that will allow you to do this work in a strong and positive position to identify, evaluate, and address those potential threats, to help schools distinguish between incidents that might be transitory, you know, from the ones that are very substantive and really need intervention and supports. With that, we encourage you to go to securepassage.com. We encourage you to follow up with Lucas or myself or Tyler. We will be ready to answer questions as it relates to the platform. And as like we say, we are relationship based people. If you want tips on how to best, you know, navigate these waters, we would love to talk with you about that. And like I say, Lou Robinson is from the United States Secret Service, one of our consultants that helps districts with all kinds of issues, everything from the legality and how to make sure that that you're maintaining a best posture from that perspective, as well as just how to make the teams operate well. Everyone's enthusiastic on the front end, but how do you keep that enthusiasm going as we seek positive outcomes for our students? That's the most important thing. From all of us at Secure Passage, we're grateful for you being with us today. We're sorry that Kim couldn't join us. She did send a note during the presentation today. She's a school resource officer, and they have critical things that they're addressing, and that has taken her from us this morning. But we hope that you've appreciated the time with us today, learning a little bit about this topic, and we're grateful that you were here. With that, Lucas, Tyler, thank you so much. Back at HQ to Bryce and company, thank you so much for your help today, and we do appreciate everyone joining us. With that, we're signing off from Secure Passage. Look into behavioral threat management for your schools. We know it'll be a positive outcome for you. Thank you, and have a great day today.